Hey everyone, welcome back to this holiday edition of Steven Inks. In order of the celebration of the gift-giving season, I thought I'd give my subscribers a gift by doing another episode of Used Pen Salesman. There are 3 pens that are going out into the world from my collection, along with 3 postcards made with those pens. I just can't wait to get started, so let's check them out right now. There are 3 pens up for grabs today. We have the Noodlers Nib Creeper. Look at that in a second. Along with the Fountain Pen Revolution Jaipur. And last but not least, it is the Wingsung 3008, which has a blue, I don't know what to call this, a blue piston cover and gold accents. So let's look at them bit by bit, and I'll explain the reasons why I'm giving them away and also what are the features of these pens. So first of all, we have the Noodlers a Nib Creeper, and this one is actually a Noodlers is an American ink pen, but these pens are actually made in India, as are the Fountain Pen Revolution. You're going to notice some similarities as we go through them. First of all, this is a piston filler. It is made of what is known as vegetal resin, which smells kind of funky, but over the years the smell on this pen has faded, so you won't be getting the really strong smell that people complain about in reviews for this pen. The clip is removable. There's this little kind of screw in finial right here, so if you want to take that clip off, don't know why you would want to do that, but just in case you're curious, that does come completely apart. It says Noodlers Ink on the clip there, and the clip, no complaints about the clip. It's a little bouncy, but it keeps its spot. It's probably not indestructible, but never had any issues with it. The nib itself is a flex nib. If I can get it off, there we go. I'll give you a closer look at it. It is a steel flex nib, which means that the tines have a really long slit in them, and if you push down, they open up and let more ink flow out. For me, that gives a lot of wet flow, and these nibs are not ideal for me. They don't really work for me. I know some people who really love them, but for myself, they're just a little mushy. The lines don't do what I want them to do. The feed is hand-cut ebonite, which is an early version of it's a vulcanized rubber that is hardened. This was used for a lot of things that would be made of plastic these days, but it's kind of a remnant of history of fountain pen history. So some people really like that for that reason. The piston here, when you twist down, it descends. You can see that there's a gap that's created right there, and when you twist it so that the gap completely disappears, you have it pulled up. I'm not going to do this right now, but you can actually twist this piston completely off and pull it out to do cleaning and lubricating the nib with some silicone grease, which is something that I will do before sending this pen out. All right, and now we have the Fountain Pen Revolution Jaipur. It says FPR, kind of cursive script stamped on the band there. This clip also is kind of loose, thin metal clip, moves quite a bit, but again, never had any issues with that in particular. The finial also screws completely off, so you could take the clip out if for any reason you wanted to do that. Again, I'm not sure what that reason would be, but to each their own. And when you unscrew this, there is a very small ink window, which is also made of vegetal resin. So then another connection. Both of these pens are from India. So there's a connection there. You can see when I twist the piston, you can see the piston come down in that ink window. And this piston also, if you screw it the opposite direction, it'll come completely out and you can clean and service the pen that way. So that's useful. There is as well a to get that out. There we go. Ooh, I missed a little bit of ink the last time I used this, so I'm going to be very careful here. Not get ink all over my fingers. Ha ha ha, too late. And this is the nib. It is a steel, extra fine. It is not flexible, although Fountain Pen Revolution does sell flexible nibs. I'm going to just put that right back in there. So if you really want a flex nib, you can get one for one of these pens. Yeah, there's ink all over everyone. I'm going to say that this is probably Three Oysters, Sea of Notions blue. That's what it looks like to me. And that is the last time that I used this pen, was when I reviewed that ink a very long time ago. So these two pens in particular don't really fit with my aesthetic style. They're very wet. They leave very wide lines. There's a lot of people that love that, and there's a way that, honestly, if you're a beginning artist and you're getting too bogged down with details and you need to focus on shapes and values, these are good pens to kind of keep that in mind. And also, if you use like a mixed media or watercolor paper, the thicker lines shouldn't be an issue, because that paper can absorb a lot without bleeding, because of gelatin sizing, a lot of complicated paper nerd stuff that I won't get into too much detail with. So they're usable pens, but for my purposes and the kind of things that I like to draw and the kind of paper I like to use, they are not ideal for me. I do have an Indian pen that I am keeping in my collection, which is the Fountain Pen Revolution Himalaya version 2. It has a lot of the same drawbacks and a lot of the same features as both of these pens. I just want to keep one in case I change my mind about Indian pens. Getting into this last one is the Wingsung 3008. This is a pen that I actually really like. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. It's just that it's so similar to the TWSBI Eco, and I have a TWSBI Eco, that I just don't feel as though I have any strong need to hold on to both, so I'm letting this one go out into the world. This has a clear feed, which, as you can see, it gets a little bit dirty, but there's no harm in that. It just is what it is. Gold tone steel nib. It's a fine. And this is the piston. And this piston does not come apart at all, to my knowledge. If somebody knows something that I don't know, let me know, but I don't want to break it while I'm demonstrating it. It's nice. The only difference feature it has from the TWSBI Eco is that if you just try to twist it on its own, it doesn't go. You have to pop it out, and then you twist it and it moves. It's a very nice, well put together pen, especially for its price. I'll be sad to see this one leave my collection, but I think that it would be great to put this in the hands of someone who's either just starting their pen collection or needs a nice piston filler where you can see clearly that ink, and maybe can't afford a TWSBI Eco, or maybe you can't afford a Wingsung 3008. I'll give you one for free. So we're gonna fill these up with some ink and play around with them. Right, so the pens have been filled, and all three of them have been filled with the same ink, which is Platinum Carbon Black. Just because I reserve the right to put watercolors over my drawings for my postcards if I want to later. So got to use a waterproof ink, and I went with the Platinum Carbon Black. It's a classic. So we're going to do some test lines here, and we're going to start in the order that I talked about the pen, starting with the Nib Creeper. So this is the Noodlers Nib Can't spell. Creeper. All right. And here's some hatch lines. You can see it does make some decent lines. For me, they're a little bit sloppy, and microphone cord's in the way, sorry. And if I were to try and flex it, which I will do right now, you get all this ink, but it's so much ink. Trying to see, maybe it will, maybe it won't. Let's see, will it bleed through? And it's probably gonna bleed through if you give it time. So, I don't know, maybe you like this. Maybe I'm crazy. It's possible. Here's a little mountain for you. A mountain from a crazy person. All right. But yeah, it doesn't really match the style of what I do. I prefer, when it comes to over flex pens, I kind of prefer something like a Fude pen, because you can kind of control when and where, and sometimes you can't control with this. Is it weird that as I'm talking about the things I don't like about this pen, I'm kind of having fun with it? Oh no, maybe this video is canceled. I'm just kidding. No, it is time. So I'm going to write forward, and here's some reverse, which is scratchy. You could probably, if you have some, what's it called? Micro mesh, you could probably deal with that. Another thing I want you to note, and this isn't one of the issues with the pen, is that you do get this wetness underneath the feed. It's a heavy flow. When I was using this pen, when I first got it, one of the things I did is I kept a napkin or a cloth nearby that I could dab off excess ink to avoid burping, which is something that I personally had an issue with. Maybe you have. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't had that issue. But anyway, that's the Nib Creeper. And here is the Fountain Pen Revolution, not writing that whole thing out, and my spelling strikes again. Please don't, oh my God. Please don't subscribe to this channel for spelling tips. FPR, and I always spell this wrong as well. So maybe that's how it's spelled. I think it's a Jaipur. If you're Indian and you're watching this and I've butchered a word in your language, which is obvious to everybody, I apologize. I will always apologize for being wrong. I'm wrong at least 2 times per video. Well, 3 times if you count if I spelled this wrong. And anyway, this is kind of how it goes. Thinner lines than the Creeper. The Creeper has a flex nib. It doesn't really have a nib, like a rating like fine, extra fine, that sort of thing. It's just kind of like flexible. And you can get some nice little, if you move quickly, you can get some nice little thin lines. You can also, it's not a flex nib, but if you put medium pressure, this is the kind of lines that you get. If you've got a paper that can handle this, it could be quite fun to have something like this. You get these bold lines. Drawing some arrows, and I don't know, what do I draw now? A rock. Should I draw a rock for you? Here's a rock. Not the country, but just an actual rock. Sorry my jokes are so bad in this video, and my spelling. I apologize for everything. I don't know. What does a rock look like, you guys? I'm inside a house right now. Anyway, this is kind of what it does. Lines are a little bit wet for me. Let me see what the underside of that feed looks like. This seems to be an issue with pens that are, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a decent amount of juice under there. This is another pen that has been prone to burping. It's not a pen I would travel with, so if you like to sketch on the go to work and do some sketches on your lunch break, maybe not this one. If you like some nice wet flow, because you really can get, I mean, look at that. If you want to make some really dark blacks in a sketch and you're not left-handed where you smudge everything as you go over it, maybe you'll like this. Maybe you will. Leave me a comment. You can get one from me for free. It's Used Pen Salesman episode 2. This is forward, and this is reverse. Very scratchy. Once again, a micro mesh might smooth that out. I don't do a lot of reverse writing with my pens, to be honest, so I never really bothered to do that. But you can, if you like. And very last but not least, we have the Wing Sung. I don't know why it's skipping all of a sudden. 3008. I'm just gonna pop this back reservoir, see if I need a few air bubbles to get knocked out of there real quick. Anyway, let's see. I am going to draw, what shall I draw this time? I'm going to draw a well. I don't know. Is that a weird thing to draw? This has some decent variation in line width depending on how you use it. You can kind of see that that there's, depending on how hard I push here, I can get thicker lines, and I can also get thinner lines. It's basically a budget version of the TWSBI Eco. It's not really meant to be flexible, but sometimes you can, if you're not worried about damaging it, be a little bit flexible here. And so yeah, this functions very much like the Eco. It's a friendly little pen. It pretty much does what it's told. And I don't know what else to say about it. I like it. I like it a lot. I kind of feel like when I bought my TWSBI Eco, it was a bit cheaper than they're selling them now. And it was cheap enough that I really didn't think twice about buying it. But the price they're selling it now, I don't know. Knowing everything that I know about what pens work and what pens do not work, and this is definitely a pen that works, I'm not sure if I would buy my Eco or if I would go with one of these. It's a really nice pen, and it's hard to say which one is better, because you can get some really nice stuff with this. And so here's the forward writing. This particular paper is a little absorbent, so you do get kind of a little bit thicker than what you would normally expect on something like a Tomoe River or a watercolor paper, which I do a lot of drawings on watercolor type paper, and the drawing I do ahead of this will actually also be on that paper. Now, reverse, but the reverse is pretty smooth. I almost feel like they want you to do that reverse writing for this one. You can get some really fine hatching. Fun times. I'm excited about that. Okay, so that kind of does it for the lines that you can get from these three pens. So now on to my postcard drawing and a tribute to several masters of the art of storytelling coming up. All right, so this is probably one of my favorite series of postcards that I've done, because it's a tribute to two amazing artists that had a lot to do with my experience, at least around Christmas and the holidays. Arthur Rankin and Jules Bass. If you've never heard their names, you may have seen or heard of some of their artwork. In the 70s through the 60s and 70s, they created a series of clay animations, or the term claymation sometimes applies, that celebrate holiday themes. They actually did a series of animations of Lord of the Rings, which is delightfully nerdy and weird and quirky, not at all like the Hollywood films, which were, you know, big budget and amazing, a lot of splendor and specter, but just kind of the experience of reading the books as a kid. It's just a little bit nerdy. And I think nerdy stuff should stay nerdy. So this first one is from the film Jack Frost, and it's my interpretation of the revenge that Jack Frost never got for the knight in shining armor who stole his girl, and made that sort of a tragedy rather than a comedy. There's another tribute from the same film as well, but they made about, I want to say about a dozen animations. It's really fun to do. This was done with the Jaipur, and it bled a little bit, and it took me a while to figure out why it was bleeding, and I realized what happened was I forgot to clean out the pen, and so there was still some of that blue ink in there. So actually the platinum carbon black did not bleed when I put watercolor on it. It was that it was mixed with another color. So, oops, my bad. Even these heavy flow pens, the platinum carbon black did totally fine over watercolor. So high recommendation for the platinum carbon black if you're gonna do watercolor and pen and ink. This is probably a more well-known story, which is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. This is one of my favorite characters from that movie, Yukon Cornelius. Very manly man, rugged outdoorsman. Favorite quote here on the side. This was with the Noodlers Nib Creeper. And you can see that it held up just fine doing the line work here. I'm actually pretty impressed with this as a pen that I've sort of written off and haven't really used very much. The Nib Creeper did really well on this, and I didn't have that issue with the blue ink because I cleaned it properly the last time I used it, which was a while ago. And the end result is that it took the watercolor really well, and it's a pretty decent, I think, tribute to that character. So the person who's selected to win this pen will also get the postcard, and I hope you like it. This might be my favorite of the ones that I did for this. So yeah, you can see the colors that I used here, which is my Daniel Smith watercolor set. I mostly use the same 3 colors over and over again. There's a lot of blank space in between this speed painting because that's just me trying to mix the colors. I'm not very good at watercolor, if I'm completely honest. But I was very happy and surprised that even though the Nib Creeper puts down a lot of ink on this paper, and with this watercolor, no bleeding, no feathering, no running of colors. It was great. It was as if I used like an India ink or a waterproof ink, like the kind of ink that you should never, ever put in your fountain pens. But it was the good ink that I used, that platinum carbon black. Worked really well. Makes me want to watch some of these cartoons, which I will be doing in a little bit. So yeah, there's that one. Last but not least, we did have the Wingsung 3008, and this is another character. This is the bad guy from Jack Frost. Kubla Kraus, I believe his name is. Sort of a little bit of a caricature, maybe a little bit racist. I don't know what sort of country he's supposed to be from, but he is this guy who's like a supreme dictator of this little town, and he has a dummy made out of metal, which he calls Dummy, and it's a puppet that he gets to tell him whatever he wants. And I thought to myself, if I had a puppet and I could just tell him whatever it was that I needed to hear to feel better, what would I have him say? And I couldn't resist after I got a good idea. So I ended up painting this one, and this one actually turned out to be my favorite. maybe you can relate to this idea that you just feel like you just talk about pens all the time and nobody wants to hear it anymore. That was me, and the 3008 worked lovely. I didn't have any of that skipping problem like I was having with the lines before. I don't know what that was. Every pen has a bad day, right? So yeah, this is definitely a part of my Christmas tradition, watching these movies all the time when Christmas comes around. And now that we're finally past Thanksgiving in the US, I won't be judged harshly for watching Christmas movies, so it's time to just enjoy. Yeah, you can see here, I do kind of struggle with textures such as metal, reflective pieces in watercolor. You really have to know what you want going into that. And so I had a few comments recently that people really enjoyed when I used watercolor, so I thought I'd bring it out for this video. I'm still not very comfortable with it, to be honest. There's a lot going on there that I just don't feel like I do properly or have control. But if you guys like it, then great, I'll do more. There's that postcard. It'll come with the pen if you are selected to win it. Hope you enjoyed. So now that we've had our chance to play around with these pens for one last time, it's time for you to learn how can you get one of these pens sent to you. All you have to do is be a subscriber to my channel and comment below mentioning the pen that you'd like to receive, and within 48 hours I will draw 3 random names, one for each pen. If you contact me through my email, which will be displayed on the screen right now, you will be able to receive the pen if you are chosen. International and people living in all different countries, I want you to know that you are welcome to, and I love shipping my pens internationally. You'll also receive the postcard that I drew with it, and whatever holiday you're celebrating, I hope you're having a happy, healthy, and festive one. Be well.